Welcome to the Catherine Vandome and Me podcast.
Hello and welcome to Catherine Vandome and Me. And today I'm joined by a very special guest who is a family and lifestyle medical doctor and also an award-winning author of the book Every Mum is a Super Mum. I've got my copy and I hope that you can go out and get yours. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the wonderful Dr. Dunni. Hello, Dr. Dunni. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much, Cathy. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
And you too. Thank you so much for coming on to today's podcast. And what we want to do, Dr. Dunni, is hear a little bit about what you've been doing, because on top of today's introduction, I believe that you have an entrepreneurial role in lifestyle coaching as well. And you have two beautiful children whom I've met. Just tell the podcast audience where we met, Dr. Dunni.
Absolutely. Such a pleasure. So, I have so many hats, and one of the things I kind of portray when it comes to well-being, which is something that's dear to my heart, is holistic well-being, mind, body, soul, and spirit. So, of course, for my spiritual well-being, I get that from my connection to God, and hence I go to church. And that's where we met.
It was at Our Lady in St. Edward's a few years ago, wasn't it?
That is right, exactly. So I think usually whenever we finish church, we have the opportunity to have tea and coffee in the church hall. And of course, during church, nobody is doing the high fives and the shakes and the introductions. But after church, we get to socialize. And that's where we met and had a very interesting conversation and just built up the relationship from there.
We certainly did. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you that day and learn about your wisdom and insight. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you. So, like I mentioned earlier, my passion is well-being because I know how important it is. It's more about the holistic view for your spirit. Of course, I go to church, I pray, I have a relationship with God. For your mind, so that's your mental well-being, your ability to believe in who you are and who you're meant to be, because you've been created from a spiritual point of view, that belief that you've been created for a purpose, for a reason, and just understanding that yes, these things happen. You fall into different crevices, different pits, but you will come out and you will survive and you will thrive, and it's possible. So that's for that mind. And then, of course, emotional, because sometimes what we think that translates into the emotions we express, whether it's sadness, joy, fear, guilt, shame, all those things. And being able to be a master of those emotions so that they're not mastering us and throwing us down the tunnel where we're jeopardizing our relationships, jeopardizing our progress in life, jeopardizing our job and our career because of the inability to manage emotions. So that's the third aspect. The fourth aspect is physical. Of course, physical is the focus for my own training as a Western trained doctor. So yes, I am a medical doctor, and the focus is basically body. Okay, so you've got a headache, it's physical. Okay, so we'll maybe do a test or give you a drug to take the headache away. Or you have had a cough for a while and there's certain things going on. We'll take the sample of what you're bringing up and send it off to the lab. Physical, here's an antibiotic for you. Or you need to have an x-ray to detect what exactly is happening with your body. So that's that element of it. But it's just a little, that's medicine is just a little fraction of my entire being. And my journey, it's more probably it started when I was very little, because I just happened to be born into a family where people were born before their time. My father particularly, he had certain beliefs and certain ideas that just were phenomenal. And now with my development, listening to some books, the modern day books and the books that were written in the 1940s and 50s that were talking about self-development and
Yes.
personal development. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is exactly the things my father was saying those days.
Wow. And can I just ask about your father? Because I know he's very special. Was he a medical doctor as well, or what was his position?
No, my father was not a medical doctor. He was an agric economist. And I remember when I was in school, people would ask me, so what does your father do? I'll say he's an agric economist. And they go, what's that? So after doing that a few times, I just said, okay, you know what? He's a farmer.
That's incredible. So he knew about nutrients from the soil, from the ground up. So that's a great grounding, literally, for you. And your mother as well. What did she do? What was her influence on you?
Oh, my mother, she is my rock. I have
Oh,
to say, my mother is just amazing. She is she is beautiful in and out. She
oh,
cares so deeply. When I know that, of course, some people can say things like, oh, my mother, when you have your mother being very protective of you, they say, oh no, your mother henning. I enjoyed my mother's mother henning.
I am a big advocate of Mother Henning. I think that's where this book comes from, Dr. Dunni. I think that is exactly where this comes from.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, she was there.
Wow.
You know that she had your back any
Yes.
day, anytime. I recall times when maybe somebody had bullied, of course, children get bullied in school. You get someone who's bigger than you, push you around. My mother will come to school. Who is that person? Come, 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 come. Who are you? You know what? Go and call your papa, your mother. Me and her are going to discuss this. Tell her to wear jeans because we are going to.
She sounds absolutely amazing.
It is amazing. Oh my goodness.
So she has given you, because obviously I don't know your parents, but I obviously know you, and she has given you this, and your father, that duality of strength, confidence, superpower, let's call it, and an innate wisdom, strength, all those qualities that we have talked about that you have, and that's incredible. What incredible parents. So they
Yeah,
always had your back. You always
oh,
felt protected, safe and secure. So whatever happened, as you say, we all go through different bullying. You said it's usually people that are bigger. Well, I was one of the smallest in the class, so I got I got a double helping.
oh
Um,
dear.
but I think what can happen is, as you're absolutely right there, if you don't feel protected in your home environment, then that's going to transcend into your health. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. Yes. Charity, they say, begins at home.
Yeah,
You need to have a foundation, a sense of belonging,
yeah.
a sense of love, acceptance, and appreciating compassion and experiencing compassion at home. If not, you'll go outside and be begging people, please accept me,
Yeah.
please take me, please. And there you get into people, you have people who did not have that at home. They're seeking it outside. They
Yeah.
get into gangs. They are being told, oh, go rob that person and then you'll be accepted. Oh, yes, I'll do that. Go kill that person and then you'll be accepted. Go, then they'll go and do that. You have all this happening because that foundational unit called the home may not have nourished sufficiently that human need of belonging, of acceptance, of love.
Wow, very powerfully put. I can see why you are a life coach as well. So tell me a little bit, first of all, tell me a little bit about your book. I'm going to keep holding it up. Every mum is a super mum. And just tell me a little bit about that, Dr. Dooney.
Right, no problem at all.
I've read
So
it, it's amazing, but you tell us
the,
about it.
the book is I think if someone had told me probably when I was younger that I would write a book, I probably would have said, no, probably not. But this book was born out of pain, born out of suffering, and
Yeah,
born out of grief. Because this book came to be following the death of my father.
yeah,
Um, my father is an amazing man. and a strong support and a rock. And kind of with the loss of my dad and everything that went on in my life in that time, I felt overwhelmed. I felt stressed out. And this was a stage in my life when I had two young children, both under the age of 5. And I was grieving, going through difficult challenges, left an acrimonious marriage, and I didn't know what to do. So there was a lot of tapping into what I knew growing up, because at some point, when as you progress through life, some experiences blunt your identity.
Yeah.
Some experiences kind of rob you of a little bit of who you're meant to be. And so you start to live in the shadow of yourself. When my father passed away, everything was kind of torn open and left bare. And I had to face, who am I really? Not what people were telling me, not what circumstances were showing me, but who was I really? And so that journey of self-discovery was really very important for me. And so I felt like I was a seed that was thrown into a hole surrounded by earth, which seemed cold, scary, dark, maybe dirty as well. And when I, as the seed, had this soil put over me, I felt like I could not escape. But that in itself was a moment I needed to start to grow. And just like when you plant a seed and it starts to bring forth a root and bring forth the shoots, I started to grow. I started to have myself open wide to see who I really was and who I was capable of being.
Yeah.
Yes, there were difficult moments. There were moments where my root had to kind of navigate through to find water, to find nourishment. There were times it was dark. I couldn't see the sunlight until I rose beyond that surface. I use the analogy of a plant because, of course, my father is a farmer.
I tell you what, you could write children's novels as well. I think your explanation and description is absolutely on point. I think it's beautiful what you have the way you have described that to the listener as well, because there'll be so many people watching today who are going through, and I think all of us right now are going through an evolving time, let's call it, globally. And I think it's incredibly important to hang on, as you said, to your roots, hang on to that seed. But I think it's what one would describe a midlife crisis, perhaps, that we all go through at some point. Sometimes some people never actually do. And I think what a shame that you never actually got to strip back find who you really are, the roots of who you really are behind the mask. And as an entertainer, we are much more easily sort of accustomed to wearing a mask and asking the world to love us and for that round of applause and a bow. So, this channel has got a wealth of entertainment and health, but also, wonderful doctors like yourself who have the wisdom behind and the knowledge and insight behind why these things might actually be happening, why we want those rounds of applause, somebody please love me, where it comes from, and also how to get, make those positive changes. So you're saying that one on top of another, like a tower block, one event, then another, the tragedy of your dad's passing, then circumstances beyond your control, raising two gorgeous children whom I've met, by the way, done an amazing job, and also retaining your faith and who your roots, what your roots are and where you come from and what your belief systems are and what matters to you, retaining all that on your own without perhaps an adult, maybe your mother, you had your mother's support, but she would also be grieving as well. And so you're having to, if you like, as a medical doctor badge, push it down further, because you see a lot of medics get my condition, ME, entertainers, sports athletes and medics, actually, high pressure jobs, sometimes 18 hours, never sleep, never rest, put everybody else first. And that, I think, epitomizes you as well. So am I right in that description?
That is absolutely right. And that's the reason why, even though there was that event that led to a breakdown, that breakdown led to a breakthrough
Yes.
that led to
Yes.
me breaking forth and
Yes.
being my real self. So that's why the book is titled Every Mom is a Super Mom, Breaking Free from Overwhelm and Exhaustion.
Yeah.
Because we all have these challenges, and as in our jobs, perhaps you're in a job where you're giving as an entertainer, you're giving yourself that
Yeah.
people may be entertained and appreciate your efforts by a clap, a bow, or payment. And you are maybe, as a doctor, giving yourself your knowledge, your expertise to help with the person's health to come back to from ill health to good health.
Yeah.
And then, as a mother, you're giving to your child, not hoping that your child will turn out fine. And then something happens and things may not work out. And so there is that giving and giving, and we forget to replenish.
Yes.
We forget
Yes.
to nourish ourselves. We forget that we ourselves deserve that holistic well being.
Yeah.
We just keep doing.
And I think our generation, because our parents' generation had, or they were raised with organic food, for example. My nana said they don't call it organic food, they call it food in her generation. They never called it organic food. Does that make sense? So,
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would go back to the sometimes BC to Hippocrates. So Hippocrates is regarded as the father of medicine, and he says, "Let food be thy medicine."
yeah,
And I dare add at the end, or medicine will be your food.
yeah,
And so, really, when we talk about food being your medicine, it's all about what are you eating? What are you putting in your mouth?
yeah,
I know you mentioned something about, in those days it used to be called food, now we call it organic.
yeah.
But I also, because of course my father was a farmer, my grandfather was also a farmer,
Oh,
and
wow.
they kind of had that. So I grew up in my own home having a garden, and we'd like to make a pot of soup or pot of soup. You go outside, pluck some tomatoes, wash it, chop it up, and that's how you make your food. Yes, you will buy stuff, but they were not exposed to chemicals. And of course, yes, you will have those the need to get rid of pests and all kinds of things, and that's probably the reason why they use things like herbicides and pesticides. But then you also have some foods that are so highly processed and kept to have a shelf life that is longer than it normally should,
Yeah,
because they've added preservatives to it. Those preservatives are chemicals, and
yeah,
unfortunately these things are causing us to have inflammation. There has been a lot of research regarding the gut health linked to mental health and linked to other parts of our system. And for that reason, we need to be very mindful, because when we eat something, and I have also noticed that in myself, of course, I'm a sweet tooth. I love sweet things. And there will be the time I'm like, oh, I love that cake. But I know that when I eat that particular cake or that particular sweet thing or highly processed thing, I know that I'm going to have some repercussions, because my gut will tell me, hey, what did you just do?
That's really, really wise advice. So I think what I'm hearing you say is really break it all down, start again, tip out the emotional, deal with the emotional side. You've got the emotional, the physical, the chemical, are the components of ill health. So strip it back and have a look at all those components. So we've got things like meditation, which would help to deep breathe and learning to breathe a different way. And certainly I was upper respiratory breathing because there was such a lot of toxicity blocking the ability to breathe. And I was a professional singer, so of course you need your lung expansion, and my structure is that my rib cage with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is compressed against the spine, so the lungs couldn't fully expand.
Yeah.
So you've to look at all of these components.
Because I believe very strongly, and that's one reason why I went down the route of lifestyle medicine, and in addition to my general practice vocation, is that there are certain things you're doing in your day-to-day life that is impacting your health. And there are certain things that you need to probably stop doing, or maybe start doing, or resume doing, or do more frequently, or do less frequently, that will help to reduce those symptoms that you're requesting medication for. So my idea is to find out, and of course, when someone comes, oh, I fell down, I hurt my elbow, I need painkillers, or I need checking out. That's okay, fine. I examine you based on, of course, what you've told me. I explore all the questions with you as well. But I didn't ask, so how did you fall? And then you maybe tell me about a skiing trip or
Or
something.
somebody
So we
pushed
have,
you.
and
Yeah, yeah,
something pushed
yeah.
you. And you know, that sometimes you have something like, oh, someone pushed me. I'm like, oh dear, sorry to hear about that. What happened? Was there a quarrel? And I'm doing that and communicating and
Good.
documenting as well. And while I'm doing that, I find out that this person's in an abusive relationship. I'm like, oh, and that opens up a can of worms. Unfortunately, we are faced with 10-minute appointments and people need to come out. Now, I don't know the genesis of these 10-minute appointments because I think we need more than that. And that's the reason why I work the way I work, where I choose that, okay, I will see patients and I will have a break in between because I know that there will be some people who need more than 10 minutes. There will be some people who I need to expand a bit more, maybe arrange a follow-up meeting with, or, just have that quality time to understand the remote cause. Because when you're able to understand the remote cause, it's not just going to be just putting a band-aid on. You will be able to get that thing out, nourish them so that they can feel that void that has just been housing that tumor, and then they can feel nourished enough to start to feel better, be better, think better, act better. And so I have used that in my day-to-day practice in clinical, and by infusing a bit of that lifestyle medicine, talking about the pillars. How did you sleep well last night? Oh, what did you do? How long do you sleep for? Do you wake up in the middle of the night? And that's just a normal conversation, even though maybe you've come to me with a headache. But did you know that because maybe you're not sleeping well, that might be causing the headache?
Yeah.
Because you're not drinking enough water, that might be causing the headache. So then I'm able to say, I'm asking you this question, not because I just want to know whether you drank water today or not, but this is the reason why. And they go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize. And they start to respond.
Wow.
Because when you tell someone, I'm doing this because they understand, and because the way I was brought up, my parents, even though I was in an era where it was like children were to be seen, not heard, you needed to do as you were told. My father particularly used to say, what's your opinion about this? I'm planning to do this. What do you think? We will all sit down and have a discussion. Everybody will carry a notepad and have a pen, and we have a family meeting. You jot your questions. Don't interrupt anyone. Jot your questions down. When there is a pause, okay, now your time to talk. You then say, oh, I thought about this. I thought about this. This is a question. This is my argument, and this is what I'm not happy about. And you voice your opinion, and he goes, okay. And he says, okay, in response to that, no, before he responds, he asks opinion of everybody. This was as early back as when I was like 5. I can remember. He always wanted to seek our opinion. It wasn't like he was giving the power of parenting to us. No, but he valued our opinion. So I'm very used to that. So in my communication with people, I'm like, what do you hope to gain? For example, when I was coming on the podcast, I said, what would your audience benefit from? Because I don't want to just be there and be a talking head. I want to be an impactful force to people. I want
And
to
you
do.
are. Can I just say, you really are. Oh my goodness. I think the words of wisdom that you have expressed in this short time already are just so powerful. And I can see why people should absolutely connect with you, get your book, and get wellness advice from you. But what we do also need to bring into today's world, and the most empowering thing that I found in my own healing journey, and I've written a book as well called The Truth About Me. And because I'm a comedian, I've done it in a comedy format, I hope. But also there's doctors and scientists that they also feel that we're now moving towards perhaps a little too much of quick fix, not going deep enough to solve the answers. And also, like a farmer, not you can get your dad in the past to go and get those vegetables and make that soup, or he could allow you the opportunity to learn how to pick those vegetables, how to make the soup yourself. And as much as that might be frustrating when you've come home from school on certain days,
Yeah.
but it gave you the power. Whereas a lot of Western society, particularly, have no power. And I think that's important. They do what they're told, they are working like machines. I certainly was. The parents perhaps were making the meals because they didn't want us to make a mistake.
Oh,
In
yeah.
general, and perhaps a lot of the food was more on the process line. There was the meat and the vegetables and the potatoes, but it might be Aunt Bessie's roast potatoes instead of the organically farmed. There's an enormous difference, and we had sweet teeth like you had as well, but I couldn't, with my unknown disability, I couldn't actually detoxify as speedily as a healthy person like your good self. So, but also you've nourished your body from day one with organic raw foods, which is how I eat today. Had I known the benefit just before I came on of having beetroot, which is great for gallbladder function, and a mix of spinach and kale and all these wonderful vegetables, that's my breakfast. So Westerners get used to having a cereal packet with milk, and they need to relearn, strip it all away and start again. Would you agree?
I agree. I mean, seriously, whenever you're thinking of what to eat, think about eating things that are less processed. So if anything in front of you needed 5 processes to get in front of you, that's highly processed.
Yeah.
So if you are having cornflakes, just think of it. Where did it come from? Corn. So corn was harvested, probably dried, okay, and then probably shelled, okay, and then probably baked, okay, and then I don't know, ground and then melted and whatever it is before it became those flakes. That is highly processed.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, eat the rainbow. Eat the rainbow. What that means is, what are the rainbow colors? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. We are so blessed that our food have got different colors. But in addition to that, we've got white food and something that looks black and, brown and the rest of that. So be colorful. Beetroot, it's red, it's beautiful, it's amazing. Oranges, citrus, carrots, brilliant for your eyes.
Yeah. I've become quite yellow because I think I eat carrots too much.
And the thing about it is, so first of all, think about what are the number of processes to get to the food that is in front of you. If it's more than 3 to 5 processes, it's highly processed. Avoid. 2, eat the rainbow. Colorful meals, the better. 3, eat in moderation. Because yes, you can be eating the rainbow, but if you eat it excessively, that's a problem. If you eat too little of it, that's also a problem. So when you're planning, and people think, oh, I haven't got the time. And I have to say, yes, that's a big problem. People don't have the time. But did you know that you could plan a week's meal in 1.5 hours on the weekend? I tend to bring my squad are my kids. My children, they are part of my squad. They're very good when it comes to joining me, and they're just a brilliant army. I'm the general, and they have their
Well, you've taken your parents' wisdom and you've empowered that and giving your children the same.
Absolutely. So by saying, oh, let's do this together. Of course, sometimes you might get the odd time when the child goes, oh, not again. But you make it fun. That's one very important thing. You make it fun. There's this beautiful quote by Bernard Shaw, and it says, we do not stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing.
It's one of the quotes I put in my book, George Bernard Shaw.
Perfect quote. I absolutely love that quote.
Yeah.
Because we need to make things fun. Life is to be enjoyed, not endured. We need to laugh more. Laughter is the best medicine.
Yes.
We need to make sure that when we are cooking, you can sing and cook along. You can dance and cook along. You don't need to listen to music to dance. Some people think, oh yeah, exercise, I need to go and exercise, join the gym. Do you know, I've never been a member of the gym in my life. But I do physical activity, which is one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine. Yeah. My physical activity can be walking down can be jogging on the spot or doing star jumps with my children in between my sessions, because
in between stirring the pot.
that's it, and do some star jumps and then have fun, and they're laughing their heads off, rolling on the floor, and we're having a great time. Or it
Wow.
could be dancing. Do you know we have this dance off that we do? And of course, yes, we are in a very technologically advanced age. Everybody has maybe got gadgets, we have television, we have all these things. So I said, okay, let it not just be that I'm saying, sit down, let's do board games and play chess. Yes, it's good to do those things and maybe disengage from the devices, but there's sometimes you can engage those devices. So what do? We put the television on, we put maybe something like Just Dance. Everybody has a device, and then we all dance and try to outdo each other on there. The music is playing and we're doing it, we're having fun. Oh no, I did it. And
that is incredible. What an inspiration. What incredible ideas, because we are losing those family connections. I've discussed with other podcast guests, the technological advances are actually great for some things like today, but also destroying family units. You've got children that are sitting on these devices instead of, and I'm just going to introduce my little Tinker here because he's wriggling, so just say hello to this magical lady. Say hello.
Hello.
He's my technological device. I always wanted one with batteries and I got a real one.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. And so this is Tinker, but yeah, basically you're absolutely right. Walking with your pets, with your children, with your families, getting fresh air, going into nature, get back to nature. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. And I know during the lockdown with the pandemic, we were allowed, I think, one walk or one going outdoors once a day.
Yeah.
Now, do you know, of course, schools were on holiday. Well, not on holiday, they were not open, and all the rest of that. I had to homeschool, which was brilliant because my children, I think, they were like, "Mommy, you're the best teacher in the world."
Oh,
And do you know, my son did not want to go back to school. He's like, "Mommy, I want to be homeschooled." I'm like, "No, you need to go back to school."
Oh my goodness me! I think we're all going to move in your house. Fresh food, laughter, dancing.
Do you know what we did? Because that period was the period everybody was scared. We didn't know what we were dealing with. So when, of course, it was time to do this homeschooling thing, it was new. I'd never homeschooled before. I wasn't homeschooled. Yeah. So I decided to, you remember the principle I mentioned, make it fun?
Yes.
My children would carry their school bag. They will go to the door and say, bye-bye, mommy. They hug me and they go to the door. They don't open the door. But then they stop for a bit and then they turn around and say, "Hello, teacher," and come back. They've not gone anywhere. They're within the house, but that was the ritual every morning. And at the end of the day, bye, teacher. So one day my son goes, "Bye, mommy," hugs me and kisses me and goes to the door. And then he turns around, "Hello, teacher," and he runs into us. I said, "Do you hug your teacher?"
You do now.
And so we went on walks. So those times when we had just one walk we were allowed a day, we would go on walks together. We would laugh so hard. We would walk and just roll around. And it was just so much fun. We would crack jokes. And there were things I used to play when I was younger. So we would say things like "Zoo, za, zoo," and away we go. Mention the name of girls that and we go alphabetical order. So we start from the youngest to the oldest. So my son will go A, my daughter will go B, I will go C. So we'll not be hoping that we don't end up with X, because it's very hard to get a name that starts with X, something like that. So those are things you can do on the go. When I was practicing, I was running the Manchester Marathon to raise funds for dementia. It was my children that were my training partners. My son will say, "Mommy, you can make it, you can do it," because he's so athletic. And I am there, I'm like, "Okay, all right." And so he would run back, get me, and pull me along. And I'm like, "Yes, we can do it." And it was brilliant.
Oh, I have to say, this is just incredible to hear. Just incredible, because there'll be so many people, including teachers, who are listening to you and hopefully re-inspired. Perhaps now we need to also, as your father did, sit the teachers down, sit the doctors down, sit the entertainers down and ask them, What is it that you want?
That's right. That's it. That is it. I mean, I'm also a clinical lecturer. I lecture at the university. I train medical students as well.
Wow.
So I don't just give, this is what you're meant to do. No, I ask them. Whenever I have a group of students coming to me, I send an email to all of them before the session, the 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 12 weeks or 14 weeks they're spending with me, and say, what do you want to learn? What do you struggle with? And they send an individual, and I create a learning plan that incorporate all their needs. You cannot meet the needs of people without identifying what is happening, what they need. They know themselves better than you do.
We know ourselves better than anybody else. And you may be a twin set. I don't know if you call it twin set. I think that's hair curlers. You may be a set of twins, and you may have identical genetics in certain ways, but you may both respond differently to the same treatment. Would you agree?
Absolutely. We are all uniquely, and I would tap into my spiritual mode to say each and every one of us is beautifully and wonderfully made in the image and likeness of God. And because we are wonderfully and beautifully made, I am different from you, you are different from me, but we are all connected.
We're all connected. That's the key. And this lockdown disconnected us all in many ways, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And I think what we're now on is a new journey, a new world where we are taking back our own innate wisdom and power. As you say, I don't know more than a medical doctor. I don't know more than you about medicine. And that's important, to respect our peers. That's their areas. And I think, that I was certainly brought up to do that in everything. But I think it's also important that you, as with the badge of honor that you have, that you also are listening to your patients. And I think what I'm hearing today from today's podcast is, let's make that a little bit more common so that we understand why somebody is repeatedly, sometimes daily or monthly, back in the clinic. What is the individual patient going through?
The thing about it is that one very important factor we need to recognize is that in life, in everything, there needs to be flow.
Yes.
There needs to be flow, whether it's your flow of your lymphatics, the flow of your blood, or the flow of energy.
Yes.
Whenever there is stagnation, that's why there's a sea called Dead Sea. Well, seriously, and you can't just be a taker, just take. You need to give. It needs to flow.
Yes.
If blood pumps from your heart, it needs to flow around and come back, and that's the way our life is meant to be. When we are talking now, we're exchanging energies. I'm giving, you're taking, I'm taking, you're giving, and that communication goes back and forth. That's the reason why in any relationship, whether it's between the doctor and the patient, there needs to be that flow. Whether it's the child and the parent, there needs to be that flow. Student and teacher, there needs to be the flow. Politician and the people, the members of the constituents, there needs to be a flow.
Yes.
And that's the one fundamental thing we need to work on, because for our health, for our well-being, we need to recognize who we are. We need to communicate who we are, who we're meant to be. We need to be seen and heard, and actually feel that we are seen and heard.
As you say, laughter is the best medicine. And laughter, you've got it as well. But laughter, I'm the stand-up comedian, you're the medicine. Together, we've got a perfect duo. High five.
Yeah, that's it. There is nothing as good as recognizing your strengths. There is I'm actually going to be speaking at a conference in UCL later this year. And it's talking about how we, as young educators, parents, can recognize the superpowers in their children. And we need to recognize that early enough, because our children are different. And like I said, we're all uniquely made. And because we are all unique, you can't tell. It's going to be very futile if you tell a fish to climb a tree and you measure its intelligence that way. It will feel like a failure for the rest of its life. If you tell a monkey to swim, it will feel like a failure. And so we need to kind of create nourishing, nurturing environments for ourselves to thrive, for our children to thrive. What are the ways that you create that environment? Being aware of what you eat, what you put in your mouth physically, being aware of the things you put in your mind. And I talk about that in my book, talking about the things you're feeding your mind, the things you're feeding your senses, the things you're allowing to process within your emotions. Like I mentioned, with flow being important, if you get upset because something has happened and you don't allow that emotion to flow,
Yes.
it's a big problem.
It is.
Create
Yes.
your sacred space,
Yes.
because by the time you put in those things, those boundaries is great. You want to
Yes.
shut the things that don't need to come in out.
Yes.
Very important, so important.
Yes.
And you need to nourish yourself. Sometimes you need to say no
Yes.
and
Yes.
and abide by your no. And it's okay to say, I'm not having a great day today. It's okay to be vulnerable, to
That's
recognize
important.
who
Yeah.
you are and
Yeah.
express it. Sometimes even silence can do that for you. You don't have to answer. It's not every question you are asked you need to answer.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of meditation, and I think a lot of wisdom comes from that as well, where you sit in nature. I do a lot of tree hugging, getting
Mm,
grounding,
yeah,
and we're away from technology, and just asking your higher sense of self, God, whatever your spiritual kingdom is, and ask for support, and it will come. And I find that if ever I get upset about something, I'll trip up, or something will happen when I'm going against my inner wisdom. And
that's
when
right.
now when I'm going in that, as you say, the correct flow, that's a beautiful phrase, going with the flow. And when you go with the flow, you're more able to forgive, and as you say, then setting boundaries doesn't become such a difficulty. Healthy boundaries, I should call it, healthy boundaries, and asking for what you want in life, and but also serving others, because there's nothing more beautiful than serving others with the wisdom you've gained. Would you agree with that? And that's your job as
Oh,
well.
yes. Oh, my father had this saying. I don't know where he got it from, but I think it's a biblical thing. He says, you are more blessed in giving than receiving.
Yes. Yes.
Because when you give, you open your hands. To give someone something, you need to open your hands. And when you give, you receive.
Yes. Goodness me. I could talk for hours with you, but I know that you have, because you're in such high demand, you have to dash off, unfortunately. But I hope that we can bring you back in the future. I think you have so many gifts to share. And I know that anybody listening to today's podcast is going to be utterly overwhelmed, as I feel, in a beautiful way. And what wisdom that you've shared here today, what wonderful phrases that have come from your parentage that you now pass on as a parent to your own beautiful children. And, you know, it's important that people understand that you are a single parent. Is that correct?
That's right.
And you have engineered all of these things in the lockdown period. You have turned it into a positive experience, as you
Mm.
do, that positive strength that you have, that resonates and oozes from you, and your children are doing dance exercise with their mother on a Sunday afternoon after church. I mean, that is so much better than going to your room and playing a computer game. So
Absolutely.
let's get that back. I
Yes.
mean, I'll give you the last word, but I also want to ask you, in sharing today, I want to ask you, how can people connect with you, Dr. Dunni? Where is your lifestyle coaching and website, or anything that someone can connect with you today?
It's really, really been a pleasure being able to share today, and I wish I could stay longer. Basically, I'm available on most social media channels as Dr. Dunni, and also my website is drdunni.com. And so people can connect. We do have, because I'm a reader, I'm an avid reader. We do have a book club, club for mothers. We talk about different books, because I read about 1 to 2 books a week, because I love reading.
Wow.
But it's just one of those things, because you learn a lot of nuggets in those experiences, and sometimes in those stories that you kind of pick up. And I believe very strongly that we all deserve to live life in abundance, and we need to live life to the fullest. And so we shouldn't shortchange ourselves in our day-to-day journey. My prayer and hope is that people experience and enjoy holistic well-being of mind, body, soul, and spirit in their day-to-day lives. And even if you fall, don't worry. get up and move again. And just like Martin Luther King Jr. says, if you can't fly, walk, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, keep going.
Wow. Yeah. My goodness me, what a way to end today. Dr. Dunni, it has been an absolute honour and a pleasure to have you on today's podcast. Such words of inspiration. I am now going to sit down and meditate for an hour. And my goodness me. And thank you so, so much for coming on today. And I wish you all the very best ahead. And I look forward to hopefully having you back on the show at some point in the near future. Thank you so, so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Have a
God
great day.
bless.
Thank
All the
you.
best. Bye-bye.